What's up, everyone, and welcome to this week's CyberSecurity Weekly, where we review the security events that happened in the last week. As always, I have broken them down in the timeline so you can jump around to any story you see fit. If you find my work valuable, of course, I ask you to hit the like button, and if you have not already, subscribe to my channel.
Oh, drat these computers. They're so naughty and so complex. I could pinch them.
We start off today with patches. The maintainers of the NGINX web server project have released security updates to address a zero-day vulnerability that resides in its lightweight directory access protocol reference implementation, otherwise known as LDAP. The NGINX LDAP reference implementation uses LDAP to authenticate users of applications that are provided by the NGINX web server. NGINX Open Source and NGINX Plus are not affected, states the security advisory published by the company. The advisory states that the LDAP reference implementation is impacted by the vulnerabilities when one of the following conditions apply. Command line parameters are used to configure the Python daemon. There are unused optional configuration parameters. LDAP authentication depends on specific group membership. An attacker could override the configuration parameters by sending specially crafted HTTP request headers and even bypass LDAP authentication. The Python daemon does not sanitize its inputs. Consequently, an attacker can use a specially crafted request header to bypass the group membership, or member of, check, and so force LDAP authentication to succeed even if the user being authenticated does not belong to the required groups. To mitigate against this, ensure that the back-end daemon that presents the login form strips any special characters from the username field. In particular, it must remove the opening and closing parentheses characters and the equal sign, which all have special meaning for LDAP servers, continues the advisory. The backend daemon in the LDAP reference implementation will be updated in this way in due course. NGINX project maintainers recommend users to strip these special characters from the username field and in the login form and update appropriate configuration parameters with an empty value. Microsoft Patch Tuesday security updates for April 2022 fixed 128 vulnerabilities in multiple products, including Microsoft Windows and Windows components, Microsoft Defender and Defender for Endpoint, Microsoft Dynamics, Microsoft Edge, Chromium-based, Exchange Server, Office and Office Components, SharePoint Server, Windows Hyper-V, DNS Server, Skype for Business, .NET and Visual Studio, Windows App Store, and Windows Print Spooler components. 10 of the 128 vulnerabilities fixed by Microsoft are rated critical, 115 are rated important, and 3 are rated moderate in severity. One of these flaws, tracked to CVE-2022-31805 it's a CVSS score of 7.8, is a Windows Common Log File System driver elevation, a privilege issue that is actively exploited. The flaw was reported by the NSA that likely observed its exploitation in attacks conducted by apt groups. Another flaw tracked to CVE 2022-26904 with a CVSS score of 7 is a Windows User Profile Service Elevation of Privilege vulnerability listed as publicly known at the time of release. One of the most severe issues addressed with the release of the Patch Tuesday security updates for April 2022 is an RPC runtime library remote code execution flaw with CVE 2022-26809 as its identifier and has a CVSS score of 9.8. The vulnerability could allow a remote attacker to execute code at high privileges on an affected system. Since no user interaction is required, these factors combine to make this wormable, at least between machines where RPC can be reached. However, the static port used, TCP/135, is typically blocked at the network perimeter reported CDI. Still, this bug could be used for lateral movement by an attacker within a network. Definitely test and deploy this one quickly. Google has released Chrome 100.0.4896.127 for Windows, Mac, and Linux to address a high-severity zero-day tracked as CVE 2022-1364 that is actively exploited by threat actors in attacks. The CVE 2022-1364 zero-day is a type confusion issue that resides in the V8 JavaScript engine that was reported by Clément Lassigny of Google's Threat Analysis Group on April 13, 2022. Shane Huntley, Google's Threat Analysis Group chief, highlighted that the flaw was quickly addressed by the company, basically patting himself on the back. Google is aware that an exploit for CVE 2022-1364 exists in the wild, reads the security advisory. The IT giant did not provide technical details about the attacks. As usual, it plans to keep them restricted to give time to the users to install this security fix. This is the third Chrome zero-day vulnerability addressed by the company this year. Previous bugs fixed by the company are CVE-2021-31805 which is a type confusion in V8 JavaScript engine, which was fixed on March 25th. And CVE-2022-0609, which is a use after free issue that resides in the animation library, I guess it was, which was fixed on February 14th. Apache Struts is an open source web application framework for developing Java EE web applications. The Apache Software Foundation urges organizations to address a vulnerability tracked as CVE 2021-31805 affecting Struts versions ranging from 2.0.0 to 2.5.29. An attacker could trigger this vulnerability to take control of an affected system. According to the advisory published by Apache, the issue addressed by the organization is a critical flaw in Apache Struts linked to previous OGNL injection flaws, which is CVE 2020-17530, that wasn't properly fixed. The remote code execution flaw, tracked as CVE 2020-17530, resides in forced OGNL evaluation when elevated on raw user input in tag attributes. Upon forcing OGNL evaluation using the %sign bracket, open bracket, close bracket syntax, tags attributes could perform double evaluation. Forced OGNL evaluation on untrusted input is possible to achieve remote code execution. The CISA also published a security advisory for Struts 2, recommending organizations to upgrade their installs. Apache Advisory recommends avoiding using forced OGNL evaluation on untrusted user input, and or upgrade to Struts 2.5.30 or greater, which checks if expression evaluation would lead to the double evaluation. We now move on to attacks, vulnerabilities, and updates. Facebook Meta revealed that Russia-linked threat actors are attempting to weaponize the social network to target Ukraine. The company blocked about 200 accounts operated from Russia that were used to falsely report people for various violations, including hate speech, bullying, and inauthenticity, in an attempt to have them or the posts removed from the platform. Most of these fictitious reports focused on people in Ukraine and Russia, but the network also reported users in Israel, the United States, and Poland. The social network giant uncovered Russia and Belarus nation-state actors engaged in cyber espionage and covert influence operations online. The threat actors targeted the Ukrainian telecom industry, both global and Ukrainian defense and energy sectors, tech platforms, and journalists and activists in Ukraine, Russia, and abroad. Meta also spotted a cyber espionage campaign and PSYOPs conducted by Belarus-linked app Ghostwriter Group. The app group was or has attempted to hack into the Facebook accounts of dozens of Ukrainian military personnel. In some cases, they posted videos calling on the army to surrender as if these posts were coming from the legitimate account owners. Meta revealed to have blocked the sharing of these videos. According to Bleeping Computer, NB65 hacking group is targeting Russian organizations with ransomware that they have developed using the leaked source code of the Conti Ransomware. The NB65 hacking group, since the beginning of the invasion, the collective joined forces with Anonymous and hit multiple Russian targets, including all Russian state television and radio broadcast company, known as VGTRK, and the Russian space agency Roscosmos. Since the end of March, the NB65 crew has started using its own ransomware to target Russian entities. Bleeping Computer first learned of NB65's ransomware by cybersecurity researchers Tom Malka, and during the weekend they were able to discover a sample of the Conti ransomware modified by NB65 that was uploaded to VirusTotal. The good news is that at this time, almost any antivirus solution on VirusTotal is able to detect the ransomware detected with a detection rate of 49 out of 68. The experts noticed that unlike the original version of the Conti ransomware, NB65 versions append the .nb65 extension to the encrypted file's names. The hacktivists also customized the ransom note, accusing Russia and Putin of invading Ukraine and having committed war crimes. We're watching very closely. Your president should not have committed war crimes. If you're searching for someone to blame for your current situation, look no further than Vladimir Putin, reads the NB65 ransomware note shared by Bleeping Computer. Clearly, the group has also modified the encryption process to avoid Russian victims using a decryptor provided by the Conti gang that announced its support to Russia. Another day, another threat to your data. The recently discovered CVE 2022-0482 is a broken access control vulnerability affecting Easy Appointments, which is a popular open source web app written in PHP used by thousands of sites to manage their online bookings. The vulnerability allows unauthenticated actors to access private users' data stored in the target system due to a pitfall in the API permissions check. The vulnerability was discovered and responsibly reported by Francesco Carlucci on January 30th, 2022, and fixed by Easy Appointments development team on March 8th, 2022. Easy Appointments is now secured, so the best way to be protected is to update the software to the latest stable version. Alternatively, there is a patch file that could be used in case, who knows, your Easy Appointments version was hacked to give you some special feature. SuperCare Health discovered a security breach that has led to the exposure of personal information belonging to its patients, members of its partner organizations, and others. The company notified impacted individuals and law enforcement agencies. The company told the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services that the data breach has impacted 318,379 individuals. The security breach was discovered on July 27, 2021, when the company IT personnel noticed unauthorized activity on some systems. SuperCare Health immediately launched an investigation into the incident with the help of independent cybersecurity experts that revealed that the intrusion took place between July 23rd and July 27, 2021. 7 months later, in February 2022, the company determined the potential compromise of some information relating to certain patients. You ready? Potentially compromised data depend on the individual and may include name, address, date of birth, hospital and medical group, patient account number, medical record number, health insurance information, testing and diagnostic treatment information, other health-related information, and claim information. For a small subset of individuals, their social security number and or driver's license number may have been contained in the impacted files. Cybersecurity researchers from ZScaler Threat Labs warn of a new information stealing malware named FFDroider that disguises itself as the popular instant messaging app Telegram. The malware was derived to siphon credentials and cookies from infected machines. The experts spotted multiple FFDroider campaigns which arrived via the compromised URL blah 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 blah.exe. All the attacks leveraged tainted, cracked versions of installers and freeware. The key features implemented by the FFDroider information stealer include steals cookies and credentials from the victim's machine. It targets social media platforms to steal the credentials and cookies for those platforms. The stealer signs into victim social media platforms using stolen cookies and extracts account information like Facebook Ads Manager to run malicious advertisements with stored payment methods, and Instagram via API to steal personal information. It also leverages inbound whitelisting rules in Windows Firewall, allowing the malware to be copied at desired locations. Attackers use iplogger.org to track the infection counts. The malware is able to steal data from multiple browsers, including Chrome, Mozilla Firefox, Internet Explorer, and Microsoft Edge. FFDroider also targets websites like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Amazon, eBay, and Etsy. FFDroider also supports a downloader functionality that is used to upgrade itself by downloading new modules from an update server. The modular structure allows the info stealer to add new functionalities over time. The analysis of the code of the malware revealed that there was a debug functionality in the file. So if the file name at the time of execution is text.exe, then the malicious code is executed in a debug state and pops up messages on every loop wherein it prints out the stolen cookies and the final JSON body, which is to be sent to the command and control server from each and every browser for the target websites. Data leak service DDoS Secrets has published over 700 gigabytes of data allegedly stolen from the Russian government, including over 500,000 emails. The dump includes 3 data sets. The largest one is related to the Ministry of Culture with 446 gigabytes containing 230,000 emails, which is responsible for state policy regarding art, cinematography, archives, copyright, cultural heritage, and censorship. The 230,000 emails from the Ministry of Culture of the Russian Federation, whatever that says, were leaked through, again, DDoS Secrets platform. Anonymous continues to threaten those companies and financial organizations that are still operating in Russia and are doing business with Moscow, so it's not just attacking Russian corporations, but foreign corporations that are still doing business inside of Russia. Russian-linked Sandworm threat actors targeted energy facilities in Ukraine with a new strain of the Indestroyer ICS malware known as Indestroyer 2 and a new version of the Cattywiper wiper. According to the CERT UA, nation-state actors targeted high-voltage electrical substations with Indestroyer 2. The variant analyzed by the researchers were customized to target respective substations. The attackers also employed the Cattywiper wiper to target Windows-based systems, while systems or server equipment running Linux operating systems were hit with OrcShred, SoloShred, AwfulShred disruptive scripts. CERT UA states that the app groups launched at least 2 waves of attacks against the energy facilities. The initial compromise took place no later than February 2022. It is interesting to note that the disconnection of electrical substations and the decommissioning of the company's infrastructure was actually scheduled for Friday evening, April 8th, 2022. The good news is that the attacks were detected and neutralized by government experts with the help of cybersecurity firms ESET and Microsoft. The CERT UA collected indicators of compromise for these attacks and shared them, along with the Yara rules, with a limited number of international partners and Ukrainian energy companies. Security firm ESET, which helped the Ukrainian government, published a detailed report on the Indestroyer 2 wiper used to target a Ukrainian energy company. The researchers confirmed that the attacks were scheduled for the 8th of April 2022, but artifacts suggest that the attack had been planned for at least 2 weeks. The illegal dark web marketplace RaidForums has been shut down and its infrastructure seized as a result of the international law enforcement operation TOURNIQUET, coordinated by Europol's European Cybercrime Center. Operation TOURNIQUET was conducted by law enforcement agencies from the United States, United Kingdom, Sweden, Portugal, and Romania. The law enforcement arrested the administrator of the marketplace and 2 of his accomplices. The Department of Justice published a press release to announce the seizure of RaidForums and unseal criminal charges against RaidForums founder and chief administrator Diogo Santos Coelho, 21 of Portugal. The police arrested Coelho in the United Kingdom on January 31st at the United States' request, and he remains in custody pending the resolution of his extradition proceedings. Coelho allegedly served as the chief administrator of RaidForums between January 1st, 2015 and or about January 31st, 2020. 2015, and he's now 21 in 2022, means 7 years ago he was, 14 years old? Seems kind of weird. The youngster also operated a sub-forum titled Leaks Market that described itself as a place to buy, sell, and trade databases and leaks. RaidForums was launched in 2015. Its community reached over 500,000 users. The marketplace gained popularity for the sale of high-profile database leaks belonging to a number of U.S. corporations across different industries. According to Europol, the joint effort and intense information sharing were the key to the success of Operation TOURNIQUET. The investigators were able to identify the structure of the RaidForums and the roles and responsibilities of each operator behind the marketplaces. For example, the administrator, the money launderers, the users in charge of stealing, uploading the data, and the buyers. One of the officials targeted with the infamous spyware, one of the EU officials who were targeted, who had their iPhone targeted with spyware, is Didier Reinders, a senior Belgian statesman who has served as the European Justice Commissioner since 2019. The report did not attribute the attacks to a specific threat actor or did not reveal what information was obtained following the compromise of the victims' devices. In November, Apple sent thousands of messages to iPhone owners, including the EU officials, to notify them they were targeted by state-sponsored attackers. It was the first time Apple had sent a mass alert to users that they were in government hackers' crosshairs, reported Reuters. The warnings triggered immediate concern at the Commission, the 2 officials said. In a November 26th email reviewed by Reuters, a senior tech staffer sent a message to colleagues with background about Israeli hacking tools and a request to be on the lookout for additional warnings from Apple. Security researchers said that Apple sent the warnings to its users targeted between February and September 2021. The Pegasus spyware used the forced entry zero-day exploit to compromise the recipient's devices without their interaction. IT experts examined at least some of the official smartphones for signs of compromise, but the results were inconclusive, according to the two EU sources, who spoke on condition of anonymity because, of course, they were not authorized to speak to the press, concludes the report. Reuters has not been able to determine whether the Commission is still investigating the matter. NSO sent a statement to Reuters to exclude the involvement of its surveillance tools in the attacks reported by the agency. The targeting described by Reuters could not have happened with NSO's tools, they say. Now, in November, Apple sued NSO Group and its parent company Q Cyber Technologies in U.S. federal court for illegally targeting its customers with its surveillance spyware Pegasus. Researchers at healthcare IoT security firm Scenario discovered a collection of 5 vulnerabilities impacting TUG autonomous mobile robots, collectively named JekyllBot 5, JekyllBot 5, no, JekyllBot would be funnier, that could be exploited by remote attackers to hack the devices. According to a US CISA advisory, the successful exploitation of these flaws could cause a denial of service condition, allow full control of robot functions, or expose sensitive information. A TUG is an autonomous mobile robot designed for hospitals by Athon. It uses a built-in map and sensors to navigate hospital halls, and it communicates with elevators, fire alarms, and automatic doors via Wi-Fi. These autonomous robots work in the hospital 24/7, moving materials and clinical supplies. The experts discovered the issues while deploying the TUG autonomous mobile robots in a hospital. They noticed an anomalous HTTP network traffic of an elevator to a server containing information about the hospital. For example, the map of the building, the status of the robots, video and pictures collected by the TUG systems, and more data. Giving a closer look at the server, the experts discovered it was possible to access the devices without authorization and take over the TUG autonomous mobile robots. The lack of authorization and identity checks allowed the researchers to create new admin users to the system, access user credentials, and even remotely control the robots. The researchers have illustrated some attack scenarios related to the exploitation of the JekyllBot 5 vulnerabilities. An attacker can hijack the robots to crash them into people and objects, use them to harass patients and staff, they can use them for surveillance purposes, or to interfere with the delivery of critical patient medication, or can access patient medical records in violation of HIPAA, and more. The China-backed Hafnium cyber espionage group is likely behind a piece of new malware dubbed Tarrask that's used to maintain persistence on compromised Windows systems, reported Microsoft Threat Intelligence Center experts. Hafnium primarily targets entities in the United States across multiple industries, including infectious disease researchers, law firms, higher education institutions, defense contractors, policy think tanks, and NGOs. Hafnium has previously compromised victims by exploiting vulnerabilities in internet-facing servers and has used legitimate open-source frameworks like Covenant for command and control. Microsoft Threat Intelligence Center highlighted the simplicity of the technique employed by the Tarrask malware that creates hidden scheduled tasks on the system to maintain persistence. In the attack analyzed by Microsoft, the nation-state actors created a scheduled task named WinUpdate via hacktool Win64/Tarrask to re-establish any dropped connections to the command and control servers. The attackers deleted the security descriptor value within the tree registry path. The security descriptor defines access controls for running scheduled tasks. The trick consists of erasing this SD value from the tree registry path to make the task hidden from the Windows Task Scheduler or the SCH Tasks command line utility. The only way to see the task is to manually examine the registry editor. The experts pointed out that executing a regdelete command to delete the SD value will result in an access denied error even when run from an elevated command prompt. The only way to delete the SD value is to execute the command within the context of the system user. For this reason, the Tarrask malware utilized token theft to obtain the security permissions associated with the lsas.exe process. Microsoft dismantled the command and control infrastructure used by the Zloader Trojan with the help of telecommunications providers around the world and cybersecurity firms. The IT giant obtained a court order that allowed it to sinkhole 65 domains used by the Zloader operators, along with additional 319 currently registered DGA domains. Zloader is a banking malware that has been active at least since 2016. It borrows some functions from the notorious Zeus 2.0.89 banking Trojan and was used to spread Zeus-like banking Trojan, i.e. Zeus OpenSSL. The company also identified one of the perpetrators, a man named Denis Malakov, involved in the development of a Zloader component used to deliver ransomware. Experts observed Zloader infections worldwide, most of them in the US, China, Western Europe, and Japan. Experts reported that Zloader evolved across the years, or over the years, from a basic banking Trojan to a sophisticated piece of malware capable of monetizing compromised devices by selling access to other affiliate groups. Over time, Zloader operators began offering malware as a service. The malware was used to distribute multiple ransomware, including Ryuk. Threat actors are actively exploiting a critical flaw tracked to CVE-2022-31805 in VMware Workspace 1 Access and Identity Manager, recently patched by the vendor. Researchers from Cyber Threat Intelligence Bad Packets also reported that the vulnerability is actively exploited in the wild. Last week, the virtualization giant has addressed multiple critical remote code vulnerabilities in several products, including VMware's Workspace 1 Access, VMware Identity Manager, vRealize Lifecycle Manager, vRealize Automation, and VMware Cloud Foundation products. At the time, the company urges customers to address the vulnerabilities immediately to prevent its exploitation. The CVE-2022-22954 vulnerability is a server-side template injection remote code execution issue. It was rated 9.8 in severity. The company updated the advisory to confirm that the issue is exploited in the wild. Users have to update their installs immediately. Cisco has released security patches to fix a critical vulnerability with a CVSS score of 10 out of 10, tracked to CVE 2022-20695, in Cisco Wireless LAN Controller. A remote, unauthenticated attacker could exploit the flaw to bypass authentication and log into the device through the management interface. The vulnerability resides in the authentication feature of Cisco Wireless LAN Controller software. This vulnerability is due to the improper implementation of the password validation algorithm. An attacker could exploit this vulnerability by logging into an affected device with crafted credentials. A successful exploit could allow the attacker to bypass authentication and log into the device as an administrator, reads the advisory published by Cisco. The attacker could obtain privileges that are the same level as an administrative user, but it depends on the crafted credentials. This vulnerability affects Cisco products running Cisco WLC software release 8.10.151.0 or release 8.10.162.0 and have MAC filter radius compatibility configured as other. Users can determine whether the Cisco WLC configuration is vulnerable using the show MAC filter summary CLI command. ZingoStealer is a new information stealer developed by a threat actor known as Hasker's Gang, who released it for free after they attempted to sell the source code for $500. The threat actors were also offering their own cryptor, dubbed Exocryptor, for 300 rubles, around $3, to evade detection. The cybercrime gang has been active since at least January 2020. So, the Hasker's Gang's been around since 2020, but this new ZingoStealer has been around since 2022. The crimeware allows operators to steal information from infected systems and abuse its resources to mine Monero. The malicious code is able to harvest system metadata and information stored by popular web browsers including Google Chrome, Mozilla Firefox, Opera, and Opera GX. The malware is also able to steal details from cryptocurrency wallets and load additional malware to conduct malicious operations. ZingoStealer first appeared in the threat landscape in March 2022. So again, Hasker's Gang goes back to 2020. This new InfoStealer, March 2022. And according to Talos experts, it is currently undergoing active development. Following the initial analysis conducted by the experts, the Hasker's Gang announced through its Telegram channel that the ownership of the ZingoStealer project is being transferred to a new threat actor. Talos researchers noticed a significant focus on infecting Russian-speaking victims. The threat is spreading under the guise of game cheats, key generators, and pirated software, a circumstance that suggests it was developed to mainly target home users. ZingoStealer uses Telegram chat features to exfiltrate data and distribute malware updates and components. Experts said also to have observed the ZingoStealer executable being hosted on the Discord CDN, a circumstance that suggests threat actors are also distributing the malware within gaming-related Discord servers under the guise of video game cheats. The Conti Ransomware Gang claimed responsibility for the cyber attack that hit the manufacturer of wind turbines, Nordex, on March 31, 2022. Nordex Group shut down IT systems across multiple locations and business units as a precautionary measure to prevent the threat from spreading across its network. The company this week announced that it was working to fully recover its operations after the attack. The company states that preliminary results of the investigation suggest that the security breach has been limited to internal IT infrastructure. This week, the Conti Ransomware Gang announced to have hacked the company with a message on the Conti leak site. In March, a Ukrainian security researcher leaked more source code from the Conti ransomware operation to protect the gang's protest the gang's support to Russia. The U.S. Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency has updated the alert on Conti ransomware operations. The agency added 100 domain names used by the group. Now, the joint report published by CISA, the Federal Bureau of Investigations, and the National Cybersecurity Agency in September warned of an increased number of Conti ransomware attacks against U.S. organizations. The indicators of compromise are added to the report, was provided by the U.S. Secret Service. So you had the Conti ransomware code leaked. You've had them put on all types of lists and numbers and warnings put on out there. So they've been knocked down, you could say, but they're definitely not out, as evidenced by them coming back and hacking Nordex. Ukraine's CERT UA warns of threat actors that are targeting government organizations with exploits for XSS vulnerabilities in Zimbra collaboration suite. The flaw is CVE-2018-31805 Cross-site scripting vulnerability in the ZM mail message view.getAttachment link HTML function in Zimbra collaboration suite before 8.7 patch 1 and 8.8.x before 8.8.7 might allow remote attackers to inject arbitrary web script or HTML via a content location header in an email attachment. Reads the description of this issue published by the NIST NVD. The CERT UA uncovered a cyber espionage campaign conducted by nation-state actors. Attackers used phishing messages with the subject, Volodymyr Zelensky presented the Golden Star orders to serve the armed forces of Ukraine and members of the families of the fallen heroes of Ukraine. The phishing message uses attached images allegedly from an event where President Zelensky awarded members of the armed forces. We now move on to other security news. The U.S. Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency added CVE-2022-31805 flaw in WatchGuard firebots and XDM appliances to its Known Exploited Vulnerabilities Catalog. According to the Binding Operational Directive BOD 2201, reducing the significant risk of known exploited vulnerabilities, FCEB agencies have to address the identified vulnerabilities by the due date to protect their networks against attacks exploiting the flaws in the catalog. Experts recommend also private organizations review the catalog and address the vulnerabilities in their infrastructure. A remote attacker with unprivileged credentials can exploit the CVE 2022-31805 vulnerability in WatchGuard firebots and XTM appliances to access the system with a privileged management session via exposed management access. The U.S. Cybersecurity Infrastructure Security Agency added CVE 2022-25421, which is a different flaw, privilege escalation vulnerability in Microsoft Windows Common Log File System Driver. According to the Binding Operational Directive BOD 2201, reducing the significant risk of known exploitable vulnerabilities, FCEB agencies have to address the identified vulnerabilities by the due date to protect their networks against the attacks exploiting the flaws in the catalog. And of course, they recommend private companies doing the same thing, blah blah blah. Now, this CVE 2022-24521 vulnerability was addressed by Microsoft with the release of the Patch Tuesday security updates for April 2022. The flaw was reported by the NSA, which likely observed its exploitation in attacks conducted by app groups. The vulnerabilities added to the catalog have to be addressed by the federal agencies by May 4th, 2022. That's right around the corner. The Department of Energy, the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, the National Security Agency, and the Federal Bureau of Investigation published a joint cybersecurity advisory to warn of offensive capabilities developed by actors that could allow them to compromise multiple industrial control systems, supervisory control, and data acquisition devices, including Schneider Electric Programmable Logic Controllers, Omron SysMac Next PLCs, and Open Platform Communications Unified Architecture servers. According to the advisory that was issued with the help of leading cybersecurity firms, Dragos, Mondiant, Mondiant and Microsoft are now together since Microsoft bought them, Palo Alto Networks, and Schneider Electric, nation-state hacking groups were able to hack multiple industrial systems using a new ICS-focused malware toolkit dubbed Pipedream that was discovered in early 2022. App actors have developed custom-made tools that, once they have established initial access in an OT network, enables them to scan for, compromise, and control certain ICS and SCADA devices, reads the advisory. The apt actors tools have a modular architecture and enable cyber actors to conduct highly automated exploits against targeted devices. The tools have a virtual console with a command interface that mirrors the interface of the targeted ICS and SCADA device. Modules interact with targeted devices, enabling operations by lower skilled cyber actors to emulate higher skilled actor capabilities. The toolkit could allow to scan for targeted devices, conduct reconnaissance on device details, upload malicious configuration code to the targeted device, backup or restore device contents, and modify device parameters. Threat actors can also leverage a tool to install and exploit a known vulnerability *signed motherboard driver by triggering the CVE-2021-31805 flaw to execute malicious code in the Windows kernel. The tool could be used to perform lateral movements within an IT or OT environment and interfere with device's operation. Researchers from Dragos shared a detailed analysis of what they call Pipedream Toolkit, confirming that it has yet to be employed in attacks in the wild. Mondiant, which tracked the toolkit as in controller, so Pipedream equals in controller, also published a detailed analysis warning of its dangerous cyber attack capability. With that, I say thanks again for watching. Don't forget to share, and if you haven't already, subscribe to my channel, and if you haven't already, smash the bell to be notified when I upload new episodes. I'll see you on the next episode. Take care.